Welcome to the Wellspring Digital Chat. My name is John Michael Bailey, and this is where we bring marketing brains directly to you, not the brains themselves. We bring the people with the brains. You know what I mean. Anyway, today we have the keeper of all buyer persona secrets and legends and myths, Adele Revella. Adele, please introduce yourself to these fine folks. Tell them who you are, what you do, what you're all about.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me, John.
Sure.
Yeah, so I wrote the book on buyer personas about 5 years ago. It was the worst year of my life. I hated writing a book. Anybody here that wants to write a book, go for it. For me, it was not anything I ever wanted to do. I did it because I am so concerned about all the people out there saying that buyer personas are fictional, and that they're just something you make up and fill in a template with what you know or what your salespeople know or what your customers, a few customers tell you. When in fact, it has never made a whit of sense to me to use made up stuff to inform a strategy, to inform what I write about or what I say or who I talk to or how I reach them.
Right.
I mean, why would I use fiction to go make decisions? I love fiction. You guys, I'm a great fiction reader. I read a lot, but it's not something I want to use in my work. So I founded a company in 2010 and just to help people understand how their buyers make decisions and what you need to say and do to get buyers to prioritize the decision you care about and to have them choose your company. And that's it. And that's the whole purpose of buyer personas. If anybody tells you there's any other purpose for them, be happy to let me know.
I'll send them your way.
I'll send them my way. It's just really simple. In marketing, we have this onerous task of getting a market full of buyers to want to think about what we want them to think about, and then to get them to buy from us. And that is really hard stuff to do. And the buyer persona is a tool to get you there, but only if it tells you the truth, the facts, the sometimes ugly, disappointing, like, oh, I didn't want buyers to care about that thing because our product doesn't do that. Or buyers don't like my product because it doesn't do this or it does do that. I mean, you've got to know all that stuff or you're just making stuff up.
Well, I really appreciate you being here, and I'm very excited to have you with us. I've read your book, I've read your blog, I've downloaded some of your courses. Everything buyer persona that I think of, I always go to you. I go to the source. So this is really exciting for me. So you kind of touched on my first question a little bit, and I want to dig a little bit deeper in there. You've spoken about what a buyer persona isn't. It isn't a fictional sort of caricature of a person. Can you dive a little deeper into that and also talk more about what a buyer persona actually is or should be?
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit deeper. So the biggest problem we have as marketers with buyer personas is that we start with demographics. We start with, the person's age or job title or role or company size or, their hobbies. And then we try to define them based on those demographics. And what this ends up doing is it ends up producing too many personas.
Right.
That aren't very actionable because we now know all this stuff about people, but heck, we've got to get them to think about our solution, our product, our service, whatever it is, and how do we do that? And so what a buyer persona needs to tell you is the truth about what buyers are thinking and doing from the moment that they think they might need a solution like this, whatever your solution is.
Right.
All the way, and then at every step along their journey until they actually say, these guys have got the ideal product for my needs. I'm going to click buy now. I mean, literally or through a long sales cycle, it's still, buyers have to mentally and emotionally go through that mental process And a buyer persona needs to describe that process, and not just like, oh, they go to our website and then they download a white paper and then they attend a webinar, they do a demo. Not that. That isn't what I mean. I'm talking about what are they thinking? What are the
Right.
questions they're asking? What are the answers that have them go, oh, yeah, that's it. And we need to have all that written down in the buyer persona. And frankly, whether that they're married and have 2 kids and a dog, I mean, unless you're selling marriage counseling or dog walking services, I would just leave that stuff out. And even, John, even like company size or industry or geography can be less crucial than we think it is. Sometimes that stuff matters, but we got to start with insight into what do they need to know and experience as they go through that journey.
You know, it's funny, as you're sitting here saying all this, I'm thinking this really bleeds over into the UX world for sure. UX people live and breathe this stuff. And so, you know, it's about dang time that the marketers finally understood that we need to get down up, you know, to this level of understanding our customers and what they're thinking, what they want, what they know. So that's great.
Yeah, because user personas, I mean, the guy that invented, Alan Cooper, who invented personas, started with user personas, which is what UX people cared about. So we're taking that same kind of construct, and that we need to understand in aggregate. So UX people want to know in aggregate what do users want, and marketers need to know in aggregate what do real buyers want from that buying experience. And that's just getting missed too much. Makes me crazy.
So going a little bit deeper, I've used your 5 rings of insight to work with clients on developing their buyer personas, and it's effective, but it ultimately requires a larger time commitment than they assume they're gonna be required to give. So can you talk a little bit about the 5 steps and why it's important to go deeper than just, you know, what you talked about with the superficial persona and getting deeper into that? What do they know? What are they thinking? And how can this 5 rings help with that?
Well, the fact is, you know, we really want to hear this directly from the buyers and not from the customers at all. So when we do our work, we're going directly to buyers to understand 5 categories of insight. And so first of all, we want to hear real buyers describe that trigger moment. You know, that moment in time when they said, you know, I've got to spend money to solve this problem. I've got to spend money to achieve this outcome, this goal. We want to hear that trigger moment, and we call that the priority initiative insights. So, you know, we're doing interviews with a number of buyers who have recently been through this evaluation to take me back to the day when you first decided you needed X and tell me what happened. And they tend to just give me a list of benefits they needed. And we go, no, wait, you probably needed those benefits like 6 months or a year before you started this evaluation. Like, what changed to really make that a priority? And as a marketer, you know, this is my core pain points. These are the drivers I need to understand how to get those people appeal to that moment. And so I call that the priority initiative insight. That's insight category number 1. Number 2, we call it success factors. It's kind of like benefits. These are the benefits they're seeking. And what this tells me is how to write about those benefits in a way that buyers care about, not just to reverse engineer them, you know, because I can come up with 100 benefits of a complex solution. I just look at all the things it does and I reverse engineer them, right?
Right, exactly.
I end up with too long a list. So it gets me to the short list of benefits that really buyers care about. That's insight number 2. Insight number 3, we call it perceived barriers. And I sometimes refer to this as the bad news insight, but really it can be the best insight, because this tells you how buyers eliminated certain vendors or providers of consideration. It says, well, we didn't choose these guys because they didn't have X, and we didn't choose these guys because they didn't have Y, or their salespeople didn't talk about this. Or so these are like, talk about differentiators. These are all the differentiators in the buying experience, right, John? That have buyers go, oh gosh, you know, and it's amazing. We call it perceived barriers because you'd be surprised at how far off the perceptions can be from reality. Like buyers think there's nobody out that does that. Well, we do that, but we just haven't been talking, or nobody's talking about it.
Right.
The fourth category of insight, we call it decision criteria. And this is the best part. This is the part where we get in depth into all the questions buyers are asking through their journey to figure out which provider can deliver the value, deliver the benefit. So another rant I have is that, I've been in tech marketing for a very long time. And I'm not saying how long. and the fact is that we were all taught, talk about benefits, not features.
Right.
But decision criteria will show you, and you get this from the interviews with buyers, that they had questions about your features and about your capabilities. And, how, this is the part where the rubber meets the road for them, because chances are every provider in your category is talking about the same benefits. Oh, yeah, we can solve world hunger. Yeah, we can deliver a fully integrated, scalable, flexible, enterprise-wide solution for awesome business results. Yeah, the ROI of your dreams.
Right.
Decision criteria insights, that fourth category of insight, is where you get into all the ways that you can talk about your capabilities that prove to your buyer that you can do that and that you can check all their boxes. And then the fifth category of insight, we call it buyer's journey. And this is where we get into the steps your buyers take and the resources they trust and the people, the personas that are involved in that buying decision. And so you guys don't need me to tell you the value of a good buyer's journey. The thing I got to say to you about buyer's journey is that your buyer's journey is not, I go to your website and I download your white paper and I attend a webinar. Your buyer's journey is, I talk to my peers. I talk to the companies I already know. And maybe, I did a little research online, and then later on, once they got further into their journey, I went to the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Yeah, believe it or not, they're still doing that. And, and then later on, they'll go to your website, but you need to find out and they look at your content, but it's really like, what are they thinking about and what are the questions they're asking in that content and on your website? And then you're going to know, too, who's on the buying committee and who's really influencing it. And you're going to get that whole vision through those 5 rings of buying insight.
It's
that's a long answer.
No, that's fantastic. As a content marketer, I'm sitting here thinking, man, all that data is just gold for developing your editorial calendar, for understanding what your potential clients are looking for supporting your sales team. So, yeah,
I'd say it's almost like cheating, John. It feels like it's like, oh wait, this is the test I have to pass with buyers. Here's all the questions on the test in advance. Here's all the answers, that are the right answers for that buyer. And it feels like I cheated on my SATs. It's like,
hey,
this is legitimate test. This is a legitimate cheating.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, buyers, when we get them on the phone, we can't get them off the phone.
Right.
Like,
okay.
we'll schedule a 30-minute interview, and because this isn't a survey or some stupid, like on a scale of 1 to 10, but we let buyers tell the story about a real buying decision, and we teach marketers to do this. So you said you went to our course, and somebody, and somebody needs to ask the buyers the truth, to tell their true story, so you can hear how incredibly difficult it is for buyers to go through this journey. What's at stake for them if they get it wrong? It's huge. And you guys, I'm not talking to you. If you're a consumer marketer of potato chips, you should, and you're not already hung up on this webinar, you should sleep now. But if your buyer's got a lot at stake at making this decision, then you need to understand what's at stake and all the questions that get them comfortable that they should prioritize this investment and choose you. And
right.
If your buyer persona is not doing that, then then throw it in the trash can, or use it as a cover sheet.
There you
A
go.
lot of clients will say, but we spent all this money building all these buyer personas. They're really buyer profiles,
Right.
profiling all these buyers. And I said, we use them as a cover sheet for the
For the
story you're
real
going to go
stuff.
now get
Yeah,
about their buying experience.
exactly. So, I spent a lot of time in my last interview with my guest Scott Monty, um, from the Ford fame, about talking about the importance of empathy in marketing today. And I can't help but think that the process of developing buyer personas also helps clients to empathize with the buyers, to understand. And we've talked a little bit about this, but even considering today, do you think going through this process really enables the clients to understand better their clients, their buyers, and to really deeply empathize with them on a different level?
Yeah, so empathy is such an interesting topic. It's one of my favorite topics, and the question always is for marketers is, what are we empathizing with buyers about?
Hmm.
I mean, because certainly, even after the initial COVID shutdown, and there was an enormous outreach of outpouring of, oh gosh, stay home, stay safe,
Right.
we care about you, we're doing our best to help you. So that's a form of empathy, right? But every human on the planet, has there ever been a moment like this when every human on the planet was like in the same boat? Like we're all at some level struggling with this
It's
shutdown.
crazy.
So that
Yeah.
was easy. What's harder is when and where personas can take people in the wrong direction is some people will get like a day in the life of the buyer. Some
Mm.
people think personas are about a day in the life. And there's nothing wrong with that because it can help you empathize with that person's day.
Hmm.
But for, buyer, what I say the empathy we really need to have is for their buying experience. And for the companies we work with, that buying experience doesn't happen in a single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a buying process, a journey that shows up sort of unbidden in my day. One time, I've been going along running my business, and all of a sudden I got to buy X, and I haven't bought it in a long time, or I've never bought this. And now I have to go figure out who should I consider, and I have to figure out who's best and who's not, which one I can buy that's not going to get me fired or make me look bad or make my company look bad. And, it's that's like having empathy for that is what this is about.
Right.
And then doing something about it, like, okay, now what if we became the company that delivered the best buying experience to those buyers because we empathize with how hard that is? And so what does that mean to a marketer? We've made sure the salespeople know how to talk to the buyer about what they care about and don't pester them with a lot of stuff they don't care about. We make sure that every bit of content we write is addressing questions that are
Mm.
really business critical to them or, critical. We do some B2C stuff around, really big decisions, but it's always, helping that buyer. That's the empathy I want to have, is for helping that buyer make a buying decision rather than the generalized kind of empathy that is good for humanity but doesn't necessarily help me sell more of my stuff, which is
Mm.
my job. I'm trying to help my salespeople and my company sell more stuff. So getting clear about what we want to empathize with about that buyer is crucial.
And that leads that answer leads perfectly into my next question. So I appreciate that. So we also interviewed someone I know because he wrote the foreword to your book, David Meerman
David.
Scott. We interviewed him and obviously talked a lot about Fanocracy. And I saw that you commented about the book arriving. I think this was back in December. So I'm assuming you've read it by now. So my question is, I absolutely love that book that he and his daughter wrote. If you haven't read it, pick it up. But they talk in depth about the importance of building a deep relationship with customers. And
Yeah.
so in a sense, is what David's talking about with fans the same thing about what you're talking about with really truly understanding and gaining that deep relationship with the buyers? Is a buyer, the ideal buyer persona, also a fan in a sense?
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, David and I go way back. I knew him before he wrote his first book, which was The New Rules of Marketing and
Right.
PR. We were working together. So yeah, and I'm a big fan of David Meerman Scott. He's like one of my favorite people and
He's great.
most wonderful people. And his daughter, his daughter Reiko is like amazing young woman. I met her when she was still in middle school, I think. Anyway, and now she's all grown up. How does that happen?
Right.
I'm doing that age thing again. I hate that.
All good.
So is it the same? No, it's not the same, because fans are something we build, and relationships are something we build over a period of interactions that usually extends into after they buy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, our work is all about before they buy, and fans are about both. It's like, how do we build fans among people who haven't purchased and people who have purchased, and build this sort of upswell of support for it. Now, the reason David's book is so important, and that I am such an advocate of that work, is that the number one way buyers decide which providers to consider is from their own experiences and from talking to their peers.
Right.
There's hardly anything that we hear in every single study, and we've done hundreds of studies, thousands and thousands of interviews. The only thing that we ever hear, sometimes they go online, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they attend conferences, sometimes they don't. They always ask their friends, their peers, their colleagues, always. So what could be more important than building that fan base? And David's laid out in his book, all of the elements of what it takes to do that. And so I would say to you, in terms of this conversation around buyer personas,
mm-hmm.
That it's not necessary, that it's not the same, because for buyer personas, the other thing you mentioned ideal customers. So people sometimes talk about buyer personas being your ideal customer,
Mm-hmm.
and there's that, like all other adjectives, this one can be interpreted multiple ways.
Sure.
We want it to be your target customer. We want it to be the right kind of customer. But some people take that idealism a little far with personas.
Sure. Yeah.
And they go interview their best customers and they say, oh, that's how the whole market is. So, I get a little uncomfortable with that term when people, because I see too often, and back to my rant, your
that's a great
buyer
point.
persona is a fictional depiction of your ideal customer. It isn't fictional, and it's the truth about the market, some of whom aren't even considering you, don't know who you are, or think bad things about you. And so if you take that idealistic thing too far, it can really be a rat hole.
That's a great point. No, I appreciate that. That is, I think, okay, so maybe then would it be fair to say that it's easier to build a fan base if you've also spent the time to go through the buyer persona process and really talk to the customers and understand their journey?
Yeah, because the buyer persona is also always about finding that match, right, between what we do and what buyers want. And of course, ultimately, at the end of the day, we can't fake people out. Once they, to build fans, they're going to finally figure out who we really are and what we really do and what we really believe in. And so, it's all about trying to create that match for our sales organization, for our marketing activities, and for our customer relationships, so that we get the right people to do business with, and that we don't. But you also don't want to get, there's that edge of that too much idealism here. That's the only thing I wanted to caution against.
Fair point. Fair point. So here we are in the middle of a pandemic. Great times. It's craziness, but I think one common theme we hear a lot is companies saying that they've had to pivot, they've had to dramatically change their course or retool something, and I wonder, in a sense, do you think customers that have gone through the process of truly understanding their buyers were able to better pivot and empathize with the situation that their buyers were now facing, and were able to more quickly recognize that situation and see that issue and pivot faster and more effectively? Do you think that that
Yeah.
helps them? That's part one. And part two, if I may, is there a benefit right now that we're in the middle of this pandemic to starting this process and really diving deep into the buyer persona process?
Yeah. So the pandemic, huh?
Good
So,
times.
we're always better off, of course, when we are aligned with our buyers. So, broadly, yes, that companies that do that. There's so many places we can go with this conversation. So I'll just try to keep it, because there's
Sure.
lots of different aspects of this. And, I think the key thing here is that we're not just in a pandemic or in the middle, who knows, middle and beginning, halfway through.
Right.
If you find out, John, call me. I want to know.
I'll let you know.
Um,
I'll let you know. Yeah.
but we're also in a recession,
Yes.
and an economic recession. And to me, the pandemic is like imposed all sorts of restrictions on the way we live.
Mm.
For our buyers, it's disproportionately affected some companies more than others. I mean, there's companies that are absolutely decimated by this.
Yeah.
When in the early March, we were literally within days of starting a huge study for a company where they only do marketing for restaurants.
Mm.
And imagine
Yep.
being, the second week in March, and every single customer you're trying to talk to is a restaurant owner, and so, I
It's
mean,
horrible. Yeah.
anything they knew about their buyers before that moment was completely irrelevant, and they needed to do over. So that's the most extreme case.
Mm.
By and large, the people we're interviewing are telling us that the pandemic hasn't stopped their major initiatives; it slowed them down.
Okay.
And so, knowing what you knew about your buyers before the pandemic, and that adding on things are going to go slower, and there's some industries that are just don't talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean, what I've had to do with that client is just, like hug them, like
Yeah.
virtually, of course, and just say, gosh, stay in touch. We love you guys, and we're thinking of you, and, stay home, stay safe kind of thing. But then there's the industries that have accelerated, where they
Sure.
really have had to pivot. And because they pivoted, they found, and, I don't know if it was the buyer persona, because it's so much as, I don't want to take credit where it's not due, John. And honestly, I think it's
Fair enough.
more about just a commitment to caring about what your
Right.
buyers need right now. And we see this even with buyer persona work. We bring incredibly deep insights, but companies now have to be willing to pivot to do what their buyers want. And and now what do we say? So I say the bigger issue is we're in a recession. And,
Mm.
I've been a sales and marketing leader, CMO, and run sales and marketing through other recessions, 4 of them in my career. And guess what happens? Marketing budgets get cut or scrutinized like crazy, and
Absolutely.
headcount gets cut. And it's because for a lot of companies, marketing is the only place that they can cut costs without having to lay people off.
Yep.
Nobody wants to let go of their people. So what do? They cut our budgets, and we feel like we can't do anything. So I would say to you that because we're in a recession, and who knows how long that's going to last,
Sure.
that's the more crucial way to think about this, is that the ROI of marketing has never been more important, and that it's never been more critical that we don't just, like switch our live events to virtual and expect the same results.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that we have more than ever got to connect with the customer who are spending money to solve this problem now and talk about what they care about. Because if we are wasting money, or if we can't show how what we're doing is helping buyers make buying decisions,
Sure.
then that program, our job maybe is at risk. And it's
Absolutely.
I think this could be the longest and deepest recession of my lifetime. And that's saying a lot, because I've been through some bad ones. So we've got to, this is absolutely the time to know what your buyers want to talk about.
Right.
And also the other thing is, I've seen people say, oh, I mean, I literally had a client say, I was talking to customers, of course, through April and May, and they said, we're just going to pause all of our marketing for the rest of the year. Well, how does that work?
That's crazy.
And I'm thinking, but guess what? Your salespeople, they're still working. They still have to close deals. And more than ever, our salespeople, I mean, I talked to my sales guy in April and said, so Brock, really and truly, what's the pipeline now?
Yeah.
And he didn't know. And I'm not the only executive asking the sales team, what's the pipeline now?
Yeah.
So the more marketing can be, joined at the hip with the buyers and with the salespeople, this is the place where marketing and sales alignment comes from, is we're really like connected to what the buyers want. This is the one thing the salespeople care about that we care about. They may not care about that white paper we publish, but they care about which buyers are buying, and what are they buying, and why are they buying, and how are they buying, and who's involved. And so this is the time when marketers need to double down on all of that. But it's not marketing Mary and 2 dogs and a cat kind of persona.
Right.
Do not do that.
Well, I think the pandemic and ipso facto the recession have forced many industries to rethink many of their methodologies, and marketing is one of those things that we've seen as a digital marketing firm. We've seen clients go, okay, we're cutting off all marketing, and then come back to us and say, well, that was a bad idea. Let's, re-engage, but let's re-engage in a different way, because our salespeople are saying there's no leads. So, exactly. I think I like to look at the positive side, and maybe the positive side of this is that some of that more superficial sort of marketing activity will fall by the wayside.
Exactly.
Finally.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It causes, it puts when budgets are available, marketers can really go a little bit off the rails. And really it is positive, John, because we know marketing's crucial. Your company knows it is. But dating back decades, my dog's over here complaining. I don't know why.
That's what they do.
She's having a fit.
The new normal. Yeah.
So I guess because I didn't walk her this morning, I was too busy, but she's, we're in a position right now where we have an opportunity to really show the value of marketing and prove that value. And I think that's ultimately a good thing for us. I kind of worry when marketers are out there, with sort of unlimited budgets doing stuff that, and then we get on, and the real reason I worry about is we get on the phone with the buyers and we interview them about their buying decision, and we say, well, talk to me about the marketing content that really helped you make a buying decision. And they're like,
crickets.
Well, we looked at the documentation, or we looked at, so I mean, this is like, that's scary. And I think that's what still gets me working so hard every day, is that there's this huge opportunity to deliver the best buying experience in the industry.
Absolutely.
And honestly, so much of the time we hear buyers say, well, no, we didn't look at that because they all said the same thing. And then we're sitting around in back rooms trying to use more adjectives, different superlatives, different success stories, or different or video, or formats or whatever, when really the buyers are just begging us to answer their questions.
Yep. I think that's a great place to leave it. I think that's brilliant.
They're just begging us to answer their questions.
That's yes. Amen. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this. I really appreciate it. I could talk to you about this all day long, but I don't think either one of us have all day. So we'll cut it off here. So thank you so much, and stay safe out there, everyone. And read Adele's book, please, and go to her website. What is it? It's buyerpersonas.com.
Buyerpersona.com.
Buyerpersona.com. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.